Let's bring you some analysis. Prior to that, some political, economic analysis. I'm joined by Iraj Abedian and Lebohang Peko. Thank you both for being here. Let me start with you, Lebohang. I don't know if you've been following these events over the years, but does it seem like the enthusiasm and the numbers are pointing to support for Cyril Ramaphosa himself?
Well, probably there's a bit of a honeymoon factor since the December conference, a sense of slight optimism. But obviously, when you look at the kind of themes that have emerged at the January 8th statement every year since '72, you get a sense in which they seem to capture the zeitgeist, the kind of the political will and the mood on the ground. So the last couple of years, obviously, there's been a bit of criticism around evoking ghosts of the ANC past. So last year, obviously, O.R. Tambo, this year, Nelson Mandela. And some of the more cynical would suggest that this is possibly an attempt to obfuscate and divert attention from the very real issues that are taking place within the party, the issues of division, the two centers of power, how the ANC economic policy is going to translate, and the kind of populist rhetoric that we've been hearing the last year. How does this actually translate going into election year, which this is now? How does this then garner confidence and support for potential voters? How does this create jobs? What is the plan? What is the big plan here? And I think certainly the January 8th statements always seem to be a bellwether indicator of what the party hopes to be, but they also sometimes sound slightly hollow, because oftentimes you see that there's a bit of a gap between what has been said, if you read the previous years on economic policy, and what has actually been implemented.
And he will be doing the January the 8th, but the head of state, President Jacob Zuma, will shortly be doing the State of the Nation address, kind of setting out the agenda for government. So there's a balance. Is there a tension?
A tension, I was going to say. Exactly, and I mean particularly because we were wondering whether the same person who's delivering the January 8th is also going to be delivering the SONA, and it seems that perhaps that's not going to be the case, and that in itself presents us with an inherent tension and an inherent dilemma.
All right, Iraj Abedian, I want your opinion on that tension and how it's playing out on the markets. Just to let you know, Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in East London at that main stadium. You can see these are the pre-events, keeping the crowd happy and busy because they are stuck there. No food, by the way, although water apparently is allowed. How is that playing out? Because there was this rally in the Rand when Cyril Ramaphosa came in, but again, that tension. How much space does he have to change things if he could and he would?
I think that tension in the market plays itself in really wild and wonderful ways. You get fake news coming where there's opportunity that President Zuma is gone, then the Rand rallies. 2 days later, people said, no, it's not right. So the traders, they're positioning themselves. If you are short, you want to promote this type of fake news, but real investors, real businesses are not going to be fooled by this type of short-term type of hype. They are looking to the ANC, and more specifically to the new leadership of the ANC led by Mr. Ramaphosa, to deal with the structural issues. The fact is that our government, our public finances have been brought to its knees. The fact is that national investment levels have reached the lowest level, and our growth has dwindled to near zero. Our government is over indebted. Our public enterprises are completely hollowed out, and they are led by a bunch that's got absolutely no credibility, no competence, and a wretched track record. Now, this is a huge mountain to drive. Real investors are not going to be fooled by fake news or by these type of celebrations. They're going to say, okay, have your celebration, do your party thing. Tell us how you're going to lead this economy out of this misery that it's been. The South African economy technically has been suspended over the past 5 years. And from time to time, no other than the cabinet, led by the president, have kick this suspended economy to more instability. Now, the economy has to be grounded. And Mr. Ramaphosa's expectation is exactly that.
All right, let's just check in live at East London. Gwede Mantashe, the former Secretary General, now chair of the party, is speaking.
Sokala Parkland, main stadium, Sizawubuya, Sizonibona, Nilandelele, January 8 statement is 106 years. Masipumle Tobumoya, Singanyakelane, Akomfuneko Yalondo, Amanda.
Siabulela ke comrade teacher pastor. Hey pastor. Butiza nini usakza siyabulela kakhulu comrade. Yonke lento esenzeka kwalaqala izakwenzeka nakwalaqala. Nizawuba inxalenye yayo yonke stadium. Siya ku stadium sesithathu esigcwele njengani.
All right, so a bit of a teaser perhaps. Cyril Ramaphosa on the stage. He will be delivering the main address, but then they marched him off again. He has been greeting supporters this morning, but holding back for that main January the 8th statement that we're talking about, that lays out the agenda for the party for the coming year. It's traditionally called the January the 8th statement. That's the birthday of the party. Of course, it's past. It's the 13th, always on a different day. But called the January the 8th statement. Very important during apartheid times when ANC stalwarts, ANC leaders were dispersed across the globe, some behind bars, and really setting the tone for the year and creating a sense of community. All right, we're talking about this huge battle for Cyril Ramaphosa to engender confidence, especially in the economy. Lebohang, what do you think? We've spoken about this before, about the whole land issue. You know, how much wealth is in the land? Is that where we should be going? And I want to know what you think about the way he's been speaking, saying we will expropriate land without compensation, but in a way that will grow the economy. I mean, firstly, I want to ask both of you if that's possible, starting with you.
So that we've been hearing that for about 5 years, in fact since 2012, since the ANC policy conference then, when the whole willing buyer, willing seller was scrapped, and we haven't seen any indication of forward movement since that time. I'm not sure whether Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be able to move that forward, number one, because of his own inherent market bias. He's very market friendly and also market sensitive. I think sometimes at the expense of moving a developmental agenda on the ground, a ground up development agenda. I think that the whole question of land, and yes, we have spoken about this before, is very much a sentiment that cannot be ignored. And the notion that a country, people who haven't had their land restored to them are not fully free, is one that has picked up tremendous political currency over the last few years, more so. I mean, it's not a new sentiment. The PAC has been saying this. Parties like Azapo, who are considered the far left, the Africanist left, but of course the EFF picked this up, and now the ANC has somewhat picked this up. How this has played out in the markets is really a lack of leadership and a lack of definition of what this means. And I think that markets, investors, etc., would be more interested in a how-to plan, which is cogent, which is feasible, and which appears to be inclusive of most people's interests, and that there's a transfer, which not only in terms of land physically, but of skills, of resources, of capacities, of technical know-how, so that this land is also productive as well. It's never going to be tidy. There will always be people who evoke Zimbabwe as this kind of, this cautionary tale, and yet at some point it has to be done. The question is the political courage to do so in a way that's cogent, and that doesn't seem to be feeding into this ongoing dirge of populist rhetoric, which it has been reduced to.
So it seems like you don't love the populism, but you want something real. That's not just a platitude given to, how do I say it? Not appease business, but not make them scared.
Well, also so that people are not taken for granted. They're real people on the ground real people in rural areas, real people in rural areas where my parents and my grandparents grew up, who would love their 40 acres and a mule, and who have the capacity for it to become productive. But there has been absolutely no state support, no state subsidies, no capacity given for this to happen.
All right, what you're seeing now are live visuals from the ABSA Stadium in East London. We saw the new ANC President, Cyril Ramaphosa, taking something of a walkabout. And even though they're keeping him back, he will be doing the main address in under 2 hours now. He has been on the ground since early, greeting supporters. There was talk of him being involved in an earlier march, some security concerns, but he was there on the stage now taking a walkabout and a lot of activity on the ground. Here in studio in Johannesburg, we're analysing the sense of euphoria that has accompanied his presidency, and whether that will translate into real changes for the people of South Africa. On the land issue, Iraj, all right, let's just wait and listen to the song for a little bit.
Gana boy, Gana son. Okay. Okay, center of the field. I have a bit of a problem. You can move towards this way.
Unity, obunye, ubuntu, imbumba, sanganani makabani, sanganani.
So you heard there a resounding song mentioning Cyril Ramaphosa. And remember, the ANC has just emerged from a highly contested battle over the presidency that he narrowly won. And we heard competing songs at Nasrec during that elective conference in December. And a beautiful message there to the new president, who himself is taking a walkabout. You can see heavily guarded, but he wants to be seen among the people, and he has been greeting ANC supporters since early this morning, taking to the stage again, it seems. Let's see what happens next. He's only due to deliver the main January, the 8th statement, at around 11 o'clock this morning. All right, Cyril Ramaphosa dancing, and this will raise the inevitable comparisons with President Jacob Zuma, who's always had that ability to just be the showman, to dance and sing. He's trying very hard, and the people are behind him this morning. A quick word from my guests. Do you think those comparisons are fair? Is it important to you, saying even looking at investor confidence, that he appeals to those grassroots of the ANC?
I think it is important that he leads a rejuvenation and reversal of this rotten culture that has taken over the past 10 years and bring it back to the grassroots where the ethics, historic ethics of ANC lies. I like to believe that the great majority of ANC supporters do not support what has happened over the past 10 years. Therefore, Ramaphosa needs to link back to the grassroots, but also listen to the real issues that the South African grassroots, not just ANC supporters, the majority of South African populations grapple with on the economic, on the social side, on the expectations that they have of an ANC government as a liberation movement to see to their needs, not to talk about it, not to promise, in fact talk much less and deliver much more and talk about it later, as opposed to the culture over the past 10 years. You talked about earlier about tension. I actually don't believe it's tension, it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction when a president comes, President Zuma talks about corruption, controlling corruption, containing corruption, and goes back to Saxonville and plots corruption. His son is embedded in corruption. His cabinet ministers are the center of corruption. These are contradictions, these are not tensions. And people, the grassroots, can see right through it. Ramaphosa has to take it back to the grassroots, associate himself as a political leader to what the people feel, what the people need.
All right, so live visuals from East London again. Shantae, take us through what's happening right now.
Francis. Well, we've just been hearing the song. We do know that whenever a newly elected ANC president does come in, they have, of course, a song of their own. This one saying "Ixesha," unity, pleasure, meaning time. It's time for change. The time is now. And of course, we do know that have been the calls, the resounding calls from the newly elected ANC president Cyril Ramaphosa. Of course, all the top six we've seen ever since the 54th New Elective Conference. We've seen the top six attend events in unison in trying to showcase and show that the ANC is in unison, not necessarily just talking, but in showing and doing their action. We've also seen the top six this morning do the roundabouts there, newly elected SGs as well as deputies there, Jesse Duarte. And of course, we've heard the song there of Cyril Ramaphosa saying the time is now, it's time for change. Let's cross back to the event that is taking place at the ABSA Stadium in East London. We are giving you rolling coverage. Of course, it's just about an hour and 10 minutes away from that inaugural January 8th statement.
Ixesha lifikile, Ixesha